My husband filed for divorce, and my 7-year-old daughter asked the judge, "Your Honor, may I show you something he doesn't know about?" The judge nodded. When the video played, the entire courtroom went silent. The cold dread was a familiar knot in my stomach. I never thought I'd be here, staring at the spiderweb of cracks in our kitchen ceiling, wondering how my life had spiraled to this point. The relentless thump-thump-thump of Victor's heavy footsteps pacing back and forth in our small living room wasn't just noise. It was a ticking time bomb, each beat echoing the impending explosion. Our apartment in downtown Chicago, once a symbol of our shared dreams, had always felt cramped. Tonight, it was suffocating. The walls seemed to close in on me, pressing down, as I stirred the pot of spaghetti sauce on the stove, trying, desperately, to focus on the aroma of garlic and basil, on anything but the inevitable confrontation. Victor and I had been married for 10 years, a decade that now felt like a lifetime. But lately, it felt like we were strangers sharing the same suffocating space. We'd met in college, both bright-eyed and brimming with dreams. He was studying business, I was majoring in economics. We bonded over our shared love for intricate numbers, for ambitious plans, for a future we swore we would build, side by side, unstoppable. Back then, I truly believed we were. But life has a way of wearing you down, slowly, insidiously, until the person you started out as is almost unrecognizable. After graduation, reality hit us hard, a brutal awakening. The job market was unforgiving, and we both ended up in positions far from our dream careers. Victor became increasingly frustrated, his ego bruised, watching his college buddies climb the corporate ladder while he felt stuck in a dead-end job at a local bank, the monotony eating at his soul. I tried to stay positive, to be the steady anchor, working as an accountant for a small firm, always looking for opportunities to grow, for a way forward. As the years bled into one another, the distance between us stretched, a chasm growing wider with each passing day. Our conversations became clipped, our dreams smaller, whispered, then forgotten. The fiery passion that once fueled our relationship had fizzled out, replaced by a cold, silent resentment that neither of us dared to acknowledge, for fear of what its recognition might mean for us, for our fragile peace. But I refused to give up. I spent my evenings hunched over my laptop, the screen reflecting my determined face, meticulously studying the stock market, devouring financial blogs, watching every investment tutorial I could find online. I was determined to find a way to improve our situation, to reignite the spark we once had, to reclaim the future we had promised each other. That's when I stumbled upon it, a promising stock. It was a small tech company, a nimble startup developing innovative software for the healthcare industry. Everything about it screamed potential, a whisper of hope in the suffocating quiet of our life. I spent weeks analyzing their financials, digging deep into their management team, meticulously following industry trends. I was convinced, with every fiber of my being, that this could be our ticket to a better life, a second chance. So, I made a decision. A terrifying, exhilarating decision. I invested our modest savings, the $5,000 we had been setting aside for years, into the stock. I knew it was a risk, a monumental gamble, but I believed in it with an almost religious fervor. I had planned to tell Victor about it tonight, to share my excitement, hoping he would understand, that he would see the hope I saw. But the moment he slammed the front door earlier this evening, a reverberating crash that shook the entire apartment, I knew something was terribly wrong. He stormed into the kitchen, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Before I could even greet him, before I could articulate the complex thoughts swirling in my head, he started yelling about his sister needing money for a car. My stomach dropped, a cold, sickening lurch. The terrible timing of my investment hit me with the force of a physical blow. "Victor, please let me explain," I pleaded, turning off the stove, the spaghetti sauce forgotten, and facing him, my heart hammering against my ribs. I found this incredible investment opportunity. Investment. He spat the word like it was poison, like a vile accusation. "You mean you gambled away our savings without even telling me?" I try to keep my voice calm, steady, despite the fear rising in my chest, a cold not tightening in my stomach. It's not gambling, Victor. I've done extensive research. This company has amazing potential. If we just give it some time. Time? He laughed bitterly, a harsh, grating sound. We don't have time, Clara. My sister needs that money now. How could you be so selfish? His words stung, each one a viper's bite, but I stood my ground, my body rigid, refusing to shrink. I'm not being selfish, Victor. I'm trying to secure our future. If this pays off, we could finally afford to buy a house, maybe even start a family. Victor's eyes narrowed dangerously, his gaze chilling me to the bone. A family? You think I want to start a family with someone I can't even trust? Each word felt like a knife twisting in my heart, a slow, agonizing turn. You can trust me, Victor. I've always had our best interests at heart. Remember when we first met? We talked about taking risks, about building something great together. That was a long time ago, he said, his voice cold, distant, like an echo from a forgotten past. We were naive kids back then. This is the real world, Clara. And in the real world, you don't throw away your family's money on some pipe dream. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, hot and stinging, but I blinked them back, fiercely. I wouldn't let him see me cry. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. It's not a pipe dream. If you just listen to me, I could show you the research I've done. This company. I don't want to hear about your damn company. Victor roared, slamming his fist on the kitchen counter. The sudden, violent sound made me jump, and I instinctively took a step back, my heart leaping into my throat. In that terrifying moment, I saw something change in Victor's eyes. The familiar anger, the frustration, was replaced by something darker, something I had never seen before, a cold, calculated malice. It terrified me more than his rage. Victor, I said softly, desperately trying to diffuse the rapidly escalating situation. I know you're upset, but we can figure this out together. We've always been a team, remember? But my words seemed to fall on deaf ears, dissolving into the toxic air between us. Victor was pacing again, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of pure, uncontrolled frustration. A team? He scoffed, a bitter, dismissive sound. A team doesn't make unilateral decisions about their shared finances. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying one last time to reason with him, to reach the man I once loved. I know I should have talked to you first. That was my mistake, and I'm sorry. But please, just give this a chance. If it doesn't work out, I'll take full responsibility. I'll get a second job if I have to pay back your sister. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old Victor, the kind, understanding man I fell in love with, in his eyes, a ghost of a memory. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, extinguished by the mounting rage. How dare you spend that money, you witch? He spat, his voice echoing through our small apartment, laden with venom. The word, the sheer malice in his tone, made me flinch. It's not just your money. I was saving that for my sister's car. I opened my mouth to respond, to try one last time to explain, to plead, but I never got the chance. Before I could react, before I could even flinch, Victor's fist struck me squarely in the stomach. The pain was immediate and intense, a white-hot agony that stole my breath, knocking the wind out of me. I gasped, a small, choked sound, and stumbled backward, my hip hitting the kitchen counter hard, a sickening crunch. As I struggled to breathe, clutching my stomach, a wave of profound disbelief washed over me. This couldn't be happening. The man I had loved for over a decade, the man I had built my entire life with, had just hit me. The physical pain, sharp and agonizing, was nothing compared to the searing agony of betrayal that tore through my heart. Victor seemed shocked by his own actions for a split second, a flicker of bewildered horror in his eyes, but then his face hardened again, a cold, brutal mask. He turned his back on me, his parting words cutting deeper than any physical blow. Get your things and leave. I've had enough of you. I slid down to the cold kitchen floor, the linoleum harsh against my skin, tears streaming down my face, silent, uncontrollable. The spaghetti sauce on the stove had started to burn, filling the air with an acrid, bitter smell that perfectly matched the bitterness in my heart. As I sat there, curled in a fetal position, trying to process what had just happened, I realized with a chilling certainty that this moment marked the end of everything I had known for the past 10 years. The dreams we had shared, the life we had so carefully built together, it all came crashing down in an instant, shattered beyond repair. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of hurting me, not just with cruel words, but with his fists. As the initial shock began to wear off, a strange, crystalline clarity washed over me. A cold, hard truth settled deep in my bones. I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't stay here anymore. This wasn't a fight we could come back from, a problem we could solve with apologies and promises to do better. This was the end. The final, definitive, brutal end. With shaking hands, I pulled myself up from the cold floor, each movement a fresh protest from my bruised body. My stomach throbbed where Victor had hit me, a constant, physical reminder of how irrevocably our relationship had deteriorated, of the dangerous precipice we had tumbled over. I looked around the kitchen at the half-cooked dinner, the unwashed dishes in the sink, the faded curtains we had picked out together years ago, brimming with hopeful dreams, and felt a profound sense of loss, a deep, aching emptiness. But beneath the raw pain and the gnawing fear, I felt something else stirring, a tiny, defiant spark, a fierce determination beginning to ignite. Victor might have told me to leave, but I realized with a sudden, empowering clarity that this was my choice now. I was choosing to walk away from a situation that had become toxic, abusive, even physically dangerous. As I moved towards our bedroom to pack my things, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. My eyes were red and puffy from crying, my hair a mess, clinging to my face. But there was something different in my expression, something new, something unwavering, a strength I hadn't seen in years, a glint of steel. I may have lost my husband, my home, and my fragile sense of security in one terrible, soul-shattering evening. But as I began to gather my belongings, to reclaim my space, I made a silent, sacred promise to myself. This would not be the end of my story. It would be a new beginning. I don't know how long I lay on that cold kitchen floor, my tears pooling beneath me, blurring the already cracked tiles, as the brutal reality of what had just happened began to sink in, to permeate every cell of my being. Victor's words echoed in my mind, a chilling mantra. Get your things and leave. I've had enough of you. The stark finality of those words, coupled with the lingering, throbbing pain in my stomach, where his fist had struck me, finally propelled me into action, into a desperate need for survival. With shaky legs, each step a tremor, I pulled myself up, using the kitchen counter for support, my hands gripping the cold laminate. The apartment was eerily quiet now, saved for the relentless ticking of the old clock on the wall, a wedding gift from Victor's parents. Each tick felt like a countdown, urging me to leave, to escape, before things got unimaginably worse. I made my way to our bedroom, no, his bedroom now, and pulled out the battered suitcase from the top of the closet. It was the same suitcase we had used on our honeymoon to Niagara Falls, a trip filled with laughter and promises of a bright, unbreakable future. Now, it would carry the pathetic remnants of my shattered marriage. As I began to pack, every item I touched brought a flood of bittersweet memories. The soft blue sweater Victor had given me for my birthday 3 years ago. I remembered how his eyes had lit up when I opened the gift, how I had felt cherished, loved. I folded it carefully and placed it in the suitcase, my hands lingering on the fabric. Would I ever be able to wear it again without thinking of him? Without feeling the phantom pain of his betrayal? Next came my work clothes, sensible blouses and slacks that I wore to my accounting job, the armor I wore for the outside world. I packed them mechanically, my mind drifting, almost involuntarily, to the investment I had made. Despite everything that had happened, despite his rage, I still believed in that stock. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the future I had envisioned for us, a future that now seemed impossibly out of reach, a mirage dissolving before my eyes. As I moved around the room, gathering my belongings, taking what little was truly mine, I caught sight of our wedding photo on the dresser. We looked so young, so ridiculously happy. Victor's arm was around my waist, and we were both grinning at the camera, our whole lives, seemingly, stretched out before us, brimming with potential. I picked up the frame, my finger tracing the outline of our smiling faces. For a moment, a fleeting, desperate moment, I was tempted to pack it, to hold on to this precious piece of our happier days, to cling to the illusion. But then I remembered the cold, blank look in Victor's eyes as he hit me, the brutal reality of the man he had become, and I set the photo face down on the dresser. Some memories, I realized, were better left behind, buried under the rubble of a broken past. I moved to the bathroom, gathering my toiletries. The familiar scent of my shampoo hit me, a wave of pungent lavender, and suddenly I was overwhelmed by the sheer normalcy of it all. Just this morning, I had stood in this very spot, getting ready for work, completely unaware that my life was about to fall apart, to shatter into a million pieces. I choked back a sob as I tossed my toothbrush and face wash into a small bag, my hands fumbling. Back in the bedroom, I opened my jewelry box. Most of the pieces inside were gifts from Victor over the years. Birthdays, anniversaries, apologies after arguments. I hesitated, unsure if I should take them. They were mine legally, but they felt tainted now, burdened by the weight of what they had come to represent. In the end, I took only the simple silver necklace my grandmother had given me before she passed away, its delicate chain a small comfort. Everything else I left behind, a silent renunciation. As I zipped up the suitcase, the sound a harsh zipper of finality, I realized how little I was actually taking with me. 10 years of marriage, reduced to a single suitcase and a small bag of toiletries. It seemed impossible that my life could be packed away so easily, compressed into such a small space. I glanced at the clock. Barely an hour had passed since the fight in the kitchen. Victor hadn't come to check on me, hadn't tried to apologize, hadn't made a single attempt to stop me from leaving. The silence from his end of the apartment was deafening, a crushing weight of indifference. With my bags packed, a small, sad monument to my broken life, I took one last look around the room. My eyes fell on the bookshelf in the corner. Among the various novels and textbooks was a small leather-bound journal, my dream journal. I'd started it in college, jotting down my hopes and plans for the future, for our future. Over the years, I had continued to add to it, even as those dreams seemed to slip further and further away, replaced by the mundane reality of our life. I walked over and pulled the journal from the shelf. Flipping through the pages, I saw entries about starting our own business, traveling the world, having children, dreams that Victor and I had once shared, but had somehow lost along the way, suffocated by resentment. I clutched the journal to my chest and slipped it into my bag. If nothing else, I would hold on to my dreams. As I wheeled my suitcase into the hallway, a strange flicker caught my eye. The overhead light that had been flickering for months, a small job Victor had promised to fix but never got around to, now shone steadily, brightly, illuminating the path to the front door. It felt like a sign, a small, quiet beacon guiding me towards a new, uncertain chapter of my life. I paused at the kitchen doorway, looking at the mess from our interrupted dinner. The burnt smell of the forgotten spaghetti sauce still hung in the air, a final, acrid reminder of the night's destruction. For a moment, a brief, habitual flicker, I considered cleaning up, a lifetime of ingrained habit kicking in. But then I stopped myself. This wasn't my responsibility anymore. As I reached for the front door handle, a sudden movement from the living room caught my eye. Victor appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of cold indifference, his eyes devoid of emotion. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, the air thick with unspoken words, with years of hurt. I searched his eyes for any sign of remorse, any indication that he wanted me to stay, any hint of the man I once loved. But all I saw was cold detachment, a profound emptiness. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice, to my surprise, stronger than I expected, firm. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I can't stay here. Victor nodded, his expression unchanged, a stone statue. That's probably for the best, he replied, his tone flat, emotionless, chilling me to the bone. I waited. For more. An apology. A plea for me to stay. Anything. But nothing came. The silence stretched between us, filled with all the things we should have said to each other years ago, before it was too late. Finally, I turned away. Goodbye, Victor, I said softly, opening the door, closing the chapter. As I stepped into the hallway, dragging my suitcase behind me, I felt a strange mixture of emotions wash over me. There was fear, of course, fear of the unknown, of what lay ahead, of the daunting emptiness. But there was also an unexpected sense of profound relief, even a flicker of excitement. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, unburdened. The elevator ride down to the lobby was surreal, a slow descent into a new reality. As I watched the floor numbers tick down, I thought about all the times I had taken this same ride, going to work, coming home, always to the same routine, the same arguments, the same disappointments. But not anymore. When these doors opened, I would be stepping into a new life, a life I would build, irrevocably, for myself. Outside, the Chicago night air was crisp and cool, a welcome shock against my tear-stained cheeks. The city lights twinkling around me, a dazzling, defiant contrast to the darkness I still felt inside. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, my single suitcase at my feet, suddenly overwhelmed by the enormity of what lay ahead. Where would I go? What would I do? I had some money saved in my personal account, but it wouldn't last long. I needed a plan. As I pondered my next move, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a sudden, jarring vibration. It was a text from my friend Sarah. Hey girl, we still on for brunch this weekend? I stared at the message, a lifeline in the chaos of my thoughts, a beacon in the storm. Sarah, of course. She had been my best friend since college, always there for me through thick and thin, through every disappointment and small triumph. Before I could talk myself out of it, before the fear could take hold, I hit the call button. Clara. Sarah's cheerful voice answered, a warm, familiar sound. What's up? Isn't it a bit late for a call? I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to keep my voice steady, to contain the tremor. Sarah, I need a place to stay. Just for a few days. Something happened with Victor, and I couldn't finish the sentence. The words caught in my throat, choked by fresh tears, but I didn't need to. Sarah's tone immediately changed, shifting from lighthearted to deeply concerned. Oh, honey, come over right now. I'm sending you my address. Stay as long as you need, okay? Don't even think about it. Relief, hot and overwhelming, washed over me. Thank you, I whispered, unable to say more, my voice thick with gratitude. As I hailed a cab to take me to Sarah's place, I looked back at the apartment building one last time. Somewhere up there, Victor was probably sitting in the dark, maybe even regretting his actions, perhaps feeling a flicker of remorse. But I couldn't think about that now. I had to focus on moving forward, on building a new path, step by painful step. The cab pulled up, a yellow beacon of hope, and I loaded my suitcase into the trunk. As I settled into the back seat and gave the driver Sarah's address, I felt a strange sense of calm come over me, a quiet resolve. Yes, my marriage had ended. Yes, I was leaving behind the life I had known for the past decade, shattered and broken. But I was also leaving behind the fear, the disappointment, and the slow, insidious erosion of my self-worth. As the cab pulled away from the curb, taking me towards an uncertain future, I made a silent, sacred promise to myself. No matter what happened next, no matter how hard it got, I would never again let anyone make me feel small. I would rebuild my life, piece by painstaking piece, and I would make it better than before. The city lights blurred as we drove, streaks of color against the dark sky, and I felt a single tear roll down my cheek. But this time, it wasn't a tear of sadness or fear. It was a tear of fierce, unyielding determination. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first few days at Sarah's place passed in a blur of exhaustion and numb shock. I spent most of my time curled up on her lumpy, comfortable couch, staring blankly at the TV, or out the window at the relentless Chicago skyline, replaying that fateful night over and over in my mind, each detail a fresh sting. Sarah, bless her kind, patient heart, did her best to comfort me. She brought me endless mugs of tea, ordered my favorite takeout, Thai noodles extra spicy, and didn't push me to talk until I was ready, until the words finally unspooled from my lips. It was on the third day when I finally broke down and told her everything. We sat at her tiny kitchen table, mugs of coffee growing cold between us, the bitter aroma filling the air, as I poured out the whole raw, ugly story. The investment, the furious fight, the gut-wrenching blow that changed everything. "Oh, Clara," Sarah whispered, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand, her touch a balm. "I'm so sorry you went through that, but I'm so incredibly proud of you for leaving. You did the right thing, truly." Her words were like a balm to my battered spirit, a cool, soothing compress on my raw wounds. For the first time since that night, I felt a fragile glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could get through this. As the days bled into a week, I slowly began to emerge from my fog of grief and shock. I knew I couldn't stay on Sarah's couch forever, as much as I yearned for the comfort of her unwavering presence. I needed to figure out my next steps, to reclaim my agency. But every time I thought about job hunting or apartment searching, a wave of overwhelming anxiety would wash over me, threatening to drown me. How could I start over from scratch, at 32, with nothing but a bruised body and a broken spirit? It was during one of these moments of despair that my phone pinged with a notification, a sudden, jarring sound. Absently, I checked it, expecting another worried message from a coworker or friend, another well-meaning but ultimately hollow word of encouragement. Instead, it was an alert from my investment app. My heart raced, a sudden, frantic flutter, as I opened it, remembering the stock that had caused so much trouble, that had been the catalyst for so much pain. To my absolute shock, the value had doubled overnight. The small tech company I had invested in, the one Victor had called a pipe dream, had just announced a major partnership with a leading healthcare provider. Their stock was soaring, skyrocketing. "Sarah," I called out, my voice shaky with disbelief, a raw, almost childish wonder. "Sarah, you won't believe this." She rushed in from the other room, concern etched on her face, her eyes wide. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," I said, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat, a strange mix of joy and disbelief. "Everything's right. The investment, it paid off. It actually paid off." We huddled over my phone, staring in amazement as the numbers kept climbing, a relentless, upward trajectory. By the end of the day, my initial $5,000 investment had turned into $15,000. It wasn't a fortune, not yet, but it was enough. Enough for a fresh start. That night, as I lay on Sarah's couch, staring at the familiar cracks in her ceiling, a mirror to my past, I made a profound decision. This windfall wasn't just about the money. It was a sign, a powerful, undeniable affirmation that I could trust my instincts, that I had value beyond being someone's wife, someone's victim. It was time to take fierce, uncompromising control of my own life. The next morning, I woke up early, filled with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years, a burning resolve that energized every fiber of my being. I brewed a pot of coffee, its rich aroma filling Sarah's tiny apartment, and set up my laptop at her kitchen table. It was time to put my economics degree to good use, to reclaim the knowledge I had once loved. I spent hours researching, devouring financial blogs, watching investment tutorials, meticulously analyzing market trends. I didn't just want to understand what had happened with my lucky investment. I wanted to learn how to replicate that success, to master it. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's kitchen table became my command center, cluttered with printouts, spreadsheets, and open textbooks. I created complex spreadsheets, studied company reports with meticulous detail, and even started a small blog documenting my learning journey, a public declaration of my new path. At night, when Sarah came home from her job at the local newspaper, I'd excitedly share my newfound knowledge with her, my words tumbling out in a torrent of discovery. "You know," she said one evening, a thoughtful look on her face, as I explained the intricacies of dividend investing. "I've never seen you this passionate about anything before, not even back in college." Her words stopped me short, a sudden jolt of recognition. She was right. Somewhere along the way, in the midst of my crumbling marriage and dead-end job, I'd lost my passion, my fire. But now it was back, with a vengeance, burning brighter than ever. As my knowledge grew, so did my confidence. I started making small, calculated investments with the money I'd earned. Some paid off handsomely, some didn't, but each one taught me something new, a valuable lesson in the unforgiving market. I learned to trust my instincts, while simultaneously doing thorough, meticulous research. I learned to be patient, to think long-term rather than chasing fleeting, unsustainable quick gains. About a month after I'd moved in with Sarah, I decided it's time to find my own place, to carve out my own independent space. My investments were doing well enough that I could afford a small studio apartment. It wasn't much, just a tiny kitchenette, a bathroom, and a main room that served as both bedroom and living area, but it was mine. The day I moved in, hanging up my clothes in the cramped closet and arranging my few cherished possessions, I felt a sense of pride I hadn't experienced in years, a quiet, powerful triumph. That night, as I sat on my second-hand couch, eating takeout and looking out at the glittering Chicago skyline, a vibrant tapestry of possibility, I pulled out my old dream journal. I flipped through the pages, past all the dreams I'd shared with Victor, the hopes we had once nurtured together, until I came to a blank page, pristine and inviting. There, in bold, confident strokes, I wrote a new entry. Dream, to become financially independent, to help other women take control of their financial futures. It was a big dream, maybe even an impossible one, a towering mountain to climb. But for the first time in a long time, I felt capable of chasing it, capable of conquering anything. The next few months were a whirlwind of learning and growth. I kept my day job as an accountant, but every spare moment, every spare ounce of energy was dedicated to expanding my financial knowledge. I took online courses in investment strategies and financial planning. I attended local meetups for aspiring entrepreneurs, soaking up their experiences and advice like a sponge. One day, as I was leaving one of these meetups, a woman approached me. She introduced herself as Diane, a talent scout for a prestigious financial firm. "I couldn't help but notice your questions during the Q&A," she said, her eyes sharp, assessing. "You seem to have a real knack for this stuff. Have you ever considered a career in finance?" I was taken aback. Me, a career in finance? The thought had always seemed so distant, so unattainable. But as I thought about it, truly considered it, I realized that's exactly what I'd been working towards all these months, instinctively, passionately. Diane gave me her card and invited me to interview for a junior analyst position at her firm. The old me would have hesitated, would have doubted whether I was qualified, whether I was good enough. But I wasn't that person anymore. The interview process was grueling, a gauntlet of multiple rounds, case studies, and complex financial analyses. But with each challenge, each hurdle overcome, I felt more alive, more energized, more confident. This was what I was meant to do, what I was destined for. When the job offer came, I couldn't believe it. The salary was double what I'd been making as an accountant, with the potential for significant bonuses based on performance. It was more money than I'd ever earned in my life, a dizzying sum. As I sat in my tiny studio apartment, staring at the offer letter, my hands trembling with excitement, I couldn't help but think back to that night in the kitchen with Victor when he had sneered at my investment and called me a witch. If only he could see me now. My first few months as CEO were a steep, exhilarating learning curve. I had to quickly get up to speed on every aspect of the company's operations, from our tech development to our marketing strategies. I worked long hours, often arriving at the office before sunrise and leaving well after dark, fueled by a relentless drive. But I loved every minute of it, the challenge invigorating. I assembled a strong team around me, people who shared my vision and my unwavering drive. Together, we started to implement transformative changes, streamlining our operations and pushing for more innovative products. It wasn't always easy. There were setbacks and challenges along the way, moments of doubt and frustration. But with each obstacle we overcame, my confidence grew, solidifying into an unshakable belief in my own capabilities. One of my proudest moments came when we launched a new app designed to help low-income individuals better manage their finances. It was a project incredibly close to my heart, inspired directly by my own past experiences of financial struggle, of feeling powerless. The app was a huge success, earning us positive press and, more importantly, helping thousands of people take control of their financial futures to find their own path to independence. As our company grew, so did my public profile. I started being invited to speak at prestigious conferences, to give interviews for major financial magazines. At first, the attention made me uncomfortable. I was used to working behind the scenes in the quiet anonymity of numbers, not being in the harsh glare of the spotlight. But I soon realized that this platform gave me a unique opportunity to inspire others, particularly women, to pursue careers in finance and technology, to show them what was possible. I thought often of the promise I had made to myself when I first started this journey, to help other women discover their own strength. Now, I was in a position to do just that. I started a mentorship program within our company, specifically aimed at helping women advance in the tech and finance sectors. Seeing these women grow and succeed became one of the most rewarding aspects of my job, a profound sense of purpose. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There were still nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my beautiful new apartment, doubting myself, wondering if I was really cut out for this level of responsibility, battling the insidious whisper of imposter syndrome. But I had learned to push through those doubts, to trust in my abilities and the hard-won decisions that had led me to this point. My personal life had, understandably, taken a back seat during this time of intense professional growth. Dating seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford, both in terms of time and emotional energy. But I wasn't lonely. I had formed close, supportive friendships with several of my colleagues, and Sarah remained my unwavering rock, always there to celebrate my successes or offer a sympathetic ear when I needed to vent. On this particular morning, as I finished getting ready for work, I felt a sense of calm confidence, a quiet anticipation. It was going to be a big day. We were meeting with representatives from a smaller tech company that was hoping to partner with us on a new, ambitious project. If the deal went through, it could open up exciting new avenues for both our companies and New Frontier. As I drove to the office, my mind already racing, mentally reviewing the key points I wanted to discuss in the meeting, I was so focused on my thoughts that I almost missed the turn into the parking garage. Chuckling at myself, a light-hearted sound, I parked the car and headed into the building. The receptionist greeted me with a warm, welcoming smile. "Good morning, Miss Walker. The representatives from biotech are already here. Your assistant has shown them to the main conference room." I thanked her and headed to my office to grab my tablet and a few documents. As I walked, I scrolled through my emails, making sure there were no last-minute issues I needed to address before the meeting. A final check. My assistant, Jake, was waiting for me outside the conference room. "Everything set up, Clara," he said, handing me a steaming cup of coffee. Black, just the way I liked it. "Do you need me to sit in on the meeting?" I shook my head, my gaze already focused on the door. "No, I think I can handle this one, but stay close in case I need any additional information." "Okay." Jake nodded and retreated to his desk as I pushed open the door to the conference room. I put on my most welcoming, professional smile as I entered, ready to greet our potential new partners, my voice already practicing its smooth, confident tone. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Clara Walker, CEO of TechFin Innovations. I'm excited to discuss the possibilities of our future partnership." My voice trailed off, a sudden, unexpected silence, as my eyes landed on a familiar face among the biotech representatives. Sitting there, looking smaller and more uncertain than I had ever seen him, was Victor. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. I felt a rush of raw, primal emotions, shock, anger, a painful twinge of that old, familiar hurt. But they passed quickly, a transient storm, replaced by a strange, profound sense of calm, of absolute control. Victor's knees literally buckled when he recognized me, a visible tremor. His face, usually so impassive, so arrogant, was a mask of disbelief, of dawning horror, as he finally realized where we each stood now, the stark, undeniable reversal of our positions. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, my gaze unwavering. This was my boardroom, my company, my moment. I wouldn't let the ghosts of my past derail this crucial meeting or shake my hard-won confidence. As I was saying, I continued, my voice strong and clear, resonating with authority. I'm excited to discuss the possibilities of our future partnership. Shall we begin? I took my seat at the head of the table, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me. A new kind of power. Victor was still staring, his mouth slightly agape, a silent testament to his shock. The other biotech representatives looked confused, clearly sensing the palpable tension, but not understanding its source, its deep, personal history. For the next hour, I led the meeting with a professionalism that would have been impossible for the old Clara, the timid, self-doubting woman who had once defined my existence. I outlined our proposal with precision, answered questions with confident expertise, and steered the discussion towards a mutually beneficial agreement. All the while, I could feel Victor's eyes on me, a constant, burning presence, a mixture of awe and profound regret in his gaze. As the meeting drew to a close, I stood up to shake hands with the biotech team, my movements fluid, confident. When I reached Victor, our eyes met. In that moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had once loved, humbled, perhaps a little broken. But I also saw something else, something new. Recognition. Recognition of the strong, capable woman I had become, a phoenix truly risen from the ashes. "Thank you all for coming," I said, addressing the room, but holding Victor's gaze, a silent, powerful message. "We'll be in touch with our final decision soon." As the biotech team filed out, Victor lingered behind, his movements hesitant, uncertain. I could see he wanted to say something, to perhaps apologize or explain, to bridge the chasm. But this wasn't the time or place for that conversation, not here, not now. "It was good to see you, Victor," I said, my tone polite but firm, an impenetrable boundary. "I hope you have a safe trip back." With that, I turned and walked out of the conference room, my heels clicking confidently on the polished floor, the sound echoing with my newfound power. As I headed back to my office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a heavy burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I had faced my past and emerged stronger. I had shown Victor, and more importantly myself, just how far I had come. Whatever happened with the biotech deal, I knew one thing for certain. I was exactly where I was meant to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The day wasn't over yet, and there was still work to be done. But as I sat down at my desk, I allowed myself a moment to appreciate the incredible journey that had brought me here. From the ashes of my old life, I had built something beautiful and powerful. And this, I knew with a quiet certainty, was just the beginning. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and endless emails. But through it all, my mind kept drifting back to that moment in the conference room when I first saw Victor. The shock in his eyes, the way his knees had almost given out, the complete, utter bewilderment. It was an image I couldn't shake. As the office slowly emptied and the sky outside my window turned a deep indigo, a velvet cloak of night descending, I found myself alone with my thoughts, the hum of the city a distant lullaby. I should have been reviewing the proposal from biotech, meticulously weighing the pros and cons of the potential partnership. Instead, I was replaying every excruciating moment of that brief encounter with my ex-husband, analyzing it with the same precision I applied to financial reports. A soft knock on my office door jolted me from my reverie, pulling me back to the present. It was Jake, my assistant, looking concerned, his brow furrowed. "Clara, sorry to bother you, but there's someone here to see you," he said, his voice hesitant. "He says his name is Victor and that it's important." My heart skipped a beat, a sudden, frantic flutter. Part of me, the professional, guarded part, wanted to tell Jake to send him away, to maintain the safe, impersonal distance I'd kept during our meeting. But another part, a part one thought I'd long since buried, a spark of morbid curiosity, was intrigued. What could Victor possibly have to say after all this time? "It's okay, Jake," I heard myself say, my voice surprisingly steady. "Send him in." As Jake left, I stood up and moved to the front of my desk, leaning against it slightly, a pose of quiet power. I wanted to face Victor on my feet, on my terms, not sitting behind the symbolic barrier of my new position and success. This wasn't about CEO Clara facing a business associate. This was about Clara, the woman, facing the man who had once been her husband, the man who had shattered her world. When Victor walked in, he looked nothing like the confident, arrogant businessman from this morning's meeting. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly in distress. He stopped a few feet away from me, his eyes roaming over my face, taking in every detail, as if he was seeing me for the very first time. "Clara," he began, his voice trembling, full of an emotion I couldn't quite place, a mixture of awe, regret, and something akin to fear. "I didn't know. I didn't realize." I raised a hand, silencing him, my voice sharp, cutting. "You didn't know what, Victor? That I was more than the quiet little wife you thought you owned? That I could accomplish more without you holding me back?" He flinched at my words, a visible recoil, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of the old Victor, the man who had swept me off my feet in college, who had promised me the world, a future painted in vibrant hues. But that man was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone broken. "I'm sorry," he said, the words seemingly dragged from deep within him, raw with emotion. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I am so sorry for what I did to you." I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound that surprised even me. "You're right. It doesn't change anything." Victor took a step closer, his hands outstretched in a pleading gesture, a desperate appeal. "Clara, please. When I saw you in that conference room looking so confident, so powerful, I realized what a fool I'd been, what I'd thrown away, what I truly lost. I could feel my carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble, a seismic shift within me. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal, emotions I thought I'd dealt with long ago came rushing back. "Do you have any idea what you did to me, Victor? Do you know how long it took me to rebuild my life after you shattered it?" He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, his shoulders slumped. "I do now. Seeing you today, hearing about your success, it made me realize how much I destroyed. Not just our marriage, but your trust, your self-esteem." I turned away from him, walking to the window. The city lights twinkled below, reminding me of that night I'd left our apartment, unsure of my future. "Why are you here, Victor?"
"What do you want from me?"
I heard him take a deep breath. I want a chance to make things right. To show you how much I've changed, how sorry I am for everything I did." I spun around, anger flaring in my chest. "You think this is a chance for redemption? It's not. You threw me away, and now you have to live with that." Victor's shoulders slumped, defeat written across his face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But seeing you today, realizing what I lost, I couldn't walk away without at least trying to apologize." For a long moment, we stood in silence. I studied Victor's face, trying to reconcile the man before me with the one who had struck me that fateful night. He looked older, wearier. There was a sadness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Finally, I spoke, my voice softer, but no less firm. "Victor, I appreciate your apology, but you're right. You don't deserve my forgiveness. What you did, it can't be undone with a simple 'I'm sorry.'" He nodded, accepting my words. I understand. I needed you to know how much I regret what I did. How proud I am of what you've accomplished. I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. Anger, sadness, and unexpectedly pity. The man standing before me was a shadow of the Victor the First had once loved. In that moment, I realized that while I had risen from the ashes of our failed marriage, he had been consumed by them. Thank you for saying that, I said, surprised to find that I meant it. But Victor, you need to understand something. My success, my happiness, they're not in spite of what you did. They're because of it. His brow furrowed in confusion, and I continued. That night when you hit me and told me to leave, it was the wake-up call I needed. It made me realize that I had been living my life for you, dimming my own light to make you shine brighter. When you threw me away, you forced me to find my own path. Victor's eyes widened as the weight of my words sank in. Clara, but I wasn't finished. I'm not telling you this to make you feel better, Victor. I'm telling you because I want you to understand that redemption isn't something I can give you. It's something you have to find for yourself. He nodded slowly, a mix of understanding and regret crossing his face. You're right. I see that now. I wish things could have been different. So do I admitted. But they're not. And now we both have to live with the choices we've made. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. Finally, Victor spoke. What happens now with biotech? I straightened, shifting back into my role as CEO. That depends on whether the partnership makes sense for TechFin. I won't let our personal history influence a business decision, Victor. I hope you can do the same. He nodded, a flicker of respect crossing his face. Of course, I should go. Thank you for hearing me out, Clara. As he turned to leave, I called out, Victor. He paused, looking back at me. I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. A sad smile crossed his face. Thank you, Clara, and congratulations on everything. With that, he was gone, leaving me alone in my office once more. I sank into my chair, emotionally drained. Seeing Victor, confronting our past, it had stirred up feelings I thought I'd long since put to rest. But as I sat there, watching the city lights twinkle outside my window, I realized something important. The encounter hadn't shaken me as it might have once done. Instead, it had reaffirmed just how far I'd come. I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. Sarah, are you free for a late dinner? I've had quite a day, and I could use a friend. An hour later, I was sitting across from Sarah in our favorite little Italian restaurant, recounting the day's events over a glass of wine. As I finished my story, Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Clara, I'm so proud of you, she said. The way you handled Victor, both in the meeting and after. You've come so far from that night on my couch. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the wine. Seeing Victor today made me realize something. For so long, I was angry at him for what he did, but now I'm almost grateful. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Grateful? I nodded. If he hadn't done what he did, I might never have found the strength to become who I am now. I might have stayed in that unhappy marriage, always wondering what I could have been. As we finished our meal and said our goodbyes, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The encounter with Victor hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. It had allowed me to close a chapter of my life that had been left unfinished. Walking back to my car, I pulled out my phone and opened my investment app. The stock that had started this whole journey, the one Victor had called me a witch for investing in, was still in my portfolio. It had grown exponentially over the past year, a constant reminder of the moment my life had changed. For a moment, I considered selling it. It felt like the final step in letting go of my past. But then I smiled and put my phone away. That stock wasn't just a reminder of what I'd lost. It was a symbol of what I'd gained. My independence, my confidence, my new life. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. Victor's unexpected appearance had stirred up old memories. But it had also shown me just how much I'd grown. I was no longer the woman who needed his approval or feared his anger. I was Clara Walker, CEO, survivor, and architect of my own destiny. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, decisions about the biotech partnership, strategies for TechFin's growth, and the constant juggling act of leadership. But for tonight, I was content. I had faced my past and emerged stronger. Whatever the future held, I knew I was ready for it. As I pulled into my driveway, the engine humming softly, I made a mental note to call my mentor from the financial firm tomorrow. It was time to expand our women's leadership program, to give back. After all, redemption might not be free, but empowerment. That was something I could give freely, helping other women find their own paths to success and happiness. With that thought, I stepped into my home, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. The weeks following my encounter with Victor were a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into work with renewed vigor, determined to use the energy from our confrontation as fuel for positive change, to transform pain into power. The biotech partnership was thoroughly evaluated, and despite my personal history with Victor, I made sure our decision was based solely on objective business merits. In the end, we decided to move forward with a modified version of the partnership. It was the right choice for TechFin, and I was deeply proud of my team's ability to separate personal feelings from professional decisions, a lesson I had learned the hard way. When I called Victor to inform him of our decision, his voice was filled with a mixture of relief and respect. "Thank you, Clara," he said, a genuine note in his tone. "I promise you won't regret this decision." "I'm sure I won't," I replied, keeping my tone professional, courteous. "This partnership has the potential to benefit both our companies greatly. Let's make the most of it." As I hung up the phone, I felt a profound sense of closure. Victor was now just another business associate. Our personal history, so fraught with pain and betrayal, was filed away in the past where it belonged, a closed chapter. With that chapter finally closed, I turned my full attention to the future. The women's leadership program I had started at TechFin, born from my own journey, was gaining significant traction, and I decided it was time to take it to the next level, to scale its impact. I reached out to my old mentor, Diane, who had first given me a chance in the cutthroat finance world. "Clara, darling." Diane's warm, booming voice filled the line, a familiar comfort. "I was wondering when you'd call. I've been following your progress. You're making waves in the industry, girl." I laughed, feeling a rush of affection for the woman who had believed in me when I was just starting out, a timid, uncertain woman. "Thanks, Diane. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. I've got an idea I want to run by you." Over the next hour, Diane and I hashed out ambitious plans for an industry-wide mentorship program for women in finance and tech. The idea was simple but powerful, to pair established leaders like ourselves with up-and-coming talent, providing crucial guidance, unwavering support, and invaluable opportunities for growth, creating a ripple effect. "It's brilliant, Clara," Diane said when I finished outlining the plan, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Count me in. And I know at least a dozen other women who would jump at the chance to be involved." The next few months were a blur of planning meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and countless cups of coffee, fueled by a shared passion. We called our initiative Breaking Chains, a poignant nod to breaking the chains of limitations, both internal and external, often placed on women in our industry. The launch event for Breaking Chains was held on a crisp autumn evening. As I stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces, some familiar, many new, all eager, I felt a surge of profound emotion, a deep sense of purpose. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady and clear, resonating with a quiet power. "We're here tonight because we believe in the power of potential. We believe that talent knows no gender, that innovation knows no boundaries. Breaking Chains is more than just a mentorship program. It's a movement." As I spoke about my own journey, from a woman who doubted her own worth to the CEO of a thriving company, from a victim to a survivor, I saw heads nodding, eyes shining with recognition and hope, a silent, powerful connection. I didn't shy away from the darker parts of my story, including my raw experience with domestic violence. It wasn't easy to share, the vulnerability immense, but I knew it was important, a crucial piece of my truth. I stand before you today, not despite my past, but because of it, I said, my voice growing stronger, more resolute. Every obstacle, every setback, every moment of doubt, they all led me here. And now it's our turn to lift others up, to be the mentors we wished we had when we were starting out, to break the chains for the next generation. The response was overwhelming. By the end of the night, we had more mentors and ments signed up than we had initially hoped for, a testament to the hunger for change. As I mingled with the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging contact information, I felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. One young woman, barely out of college, approached me with tears in her eyes, her voice trembling slightly. "Miss Walker," she said, "your story, it's so similar to mine. I was starting to think I didn't belong in this industry, but hearing you speak tonight, it's given me hope." I squeezed her hand, remembering how I had felt at her age, lost and uncertain. "What's your name?" "Zoe," she replied, her voice soft. "Well, Zoe, let me tell you something," I said, looking her directly in the eye, my voice firm with conviction. "You absolutely belong here, and I'm going to make sure you have every opportunity to prove it." As the event wound down, Sarah found me by the bar, grinning from ear to ear. "Clara Walker," she said, pulling me into a warm hug. "Look at you, changing the world one mentorship at a time." I laughed, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I don't know about changing the world, but if we can change even a few lives, it'll be worth it. In the months that followed, Breaking Chains grew beyond our wildest expectations. We partnered with universities, offering internships and scholarships to promising female students. We organized workshops and conferences, bringing together women from all levels of the industry to share knowledge and experiences to build a powerful community. The impact was tangible. I started receiving emails and letters from women across the country, sharing their stories of how the program had helped them gain confidence, secure promotions, or even, inspired by my example, start their own companies. One afternoon, as I was reviewing some proposals in my office, Jake knocked on my door. "Clara, there's someone here to see you. She says she's an old friend." Curious, I told him to send her in. To my surprise, it was Diane. "Surprise," she said, sweeping into the room with her usual flair. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by to see the woman of the hour. I stood to greet her, genuinely happy to see my old mentor, my guiding star. "This is unexpected. What brings you to Chicago?" She settled into the chair across from my desk, her eyes twinkling with a knowing amusement. "Oh, a little business, a little pleasure, but mostly I wanted to see you in action, CEO Walker." We spent the next hour catching up, discussing the remarkable progress of Breaking Chains and the latest industry trends, a comfortable, shared passion. As our conversation drew to a close, Diane's expression grew serious, her gaze unwavering. "Clara," she said, leaning forward, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. When I first met you, I saw potential. But what you've accomplished, what you're doing for other women, it's beyond anything I could have imagined." I felt a lump form in my throat, a wave of profound gratitude washing over me. "Thank you, Diane. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." She waved off my words, a dismissive gesture. "Nonsense. You had it in you all along. I just gave you a little push in the right direction." As Diane left, I found myself reflecting on how far I'd come. From the scared, uncertain woman who had fled her marriage with nothing but a suitcase to the CEO of a successful company and the founder of a groundbreaking mentorship program. The journey hadn't been easy, but every step had been worth it, every challenge a crucible forging a stronger, more resilient self. That evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, I received an email that made me pause, my hand hovering over the keyboard. It was from Victor. For a moment, my finger hovered over the delete button, a reflexive impulse to erase the pain. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. "Dear Clara," it read, "I heard about your Breaking Chains initiative. I just wanted to say congratulations. What you're doing, it's important. I know our history is complicated, but I truly am proud of the woman you've become. You're changing lives, Clara. Never doubt that. I read the email twice, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. There was no bitterness, no anger, no resentment, just a quiet acknowledgement of how far we'd both come, albeit on separate paths. I clicked reply and typed a simple, concise message. Thank you, Victor. I hope you're finding your own path forward. As I sent the email, I felt the last remnants of my old life fall away, a final, definitive release. The chains that had once bound me, to Victor, to self-doubt, to fear, were well and truly broken, shattered into a million pieces. I gathered my things and headed out of the office, nodding goodbye to the few employees still at their desks, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of their screens. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of profound contentment wash over me. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Drinks to celebrate the latest breaking chain success? I smiled and typed back, absolutely. Meet you at our usual spot in 20. As I walked to my car, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the struggles, the triumphs, they had all shaped me into the woman I was today. And that woman was someone I was fiercely proud to be. I wasn't naive enough to think the road ahead would always be smooth. There would be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt. But I was ready for them. More than that, I was excited for them because with each obstacle overcome, each fear conquered, I grew stronger, more resilient. As I drove through the bustling city streets, the lights of Chicago twinkling around me like 1,000 distant stars, I felt a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for the friends who had supported me, for the mentors who had guided me, and yes, even for the hardships that had ultimately strengthened me. The future stretched out before me, full of endless possibilities, and I was ready to embrace every single one of them. Because I was Clara Walker, survivor, leader, mentor, and the proud architect of my own destiny. What do you think is a more powerful motivator for personal growth? The pain of betrayal and loss, or the quiet strength of self-belief and newfound purpose?